The man they called the sleeping prophet sits quietly, his eyes closed in contemplation. Edgar Cayce, with his remarkable ability to access realms beyond ordinary consciousness, had insights into the afterlife that few could claim. His thousands of psychic readings, given while in trance states, revealed extraordinary perspectives on what happens when we die and the true nature of the soul. Today, we get rare access to the wisdom that made him one of the most influential spiritual figures of the 20th century. Before we continue, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The room is dimly lit as Edgar Cayce settles into a comfortable chair. His normally gentle face carries a serious expression as he prepares to discuss matters of profound spiritual significance. The interviewer, a scholarly woman with inquisitive eyes, sits across from him, notebook ready. "Mr. Cayce, thank you for agreeing to this conversation," the interviewer begins. "Your insights have helped countless people understand life's deeper mysteries. Perhaps we could start with something fundamental. How would you define what happens after death, based on your readings?" Cayce smiles gently, his voice steady and reassuring. "Death, as you call it, is merely a transition. What I've witnessed in my readings is that consciousness doesn't end when the physical body ceases to function. Instead, there's a liberation of the soul essence. The personality, the memory, the individual identity all continue. The soul simply steps out of its physical housing and into another dimension of existence that interpenetrates this physical world." The interviewer leans forward, clearly intrigued. "That's fascinating. So you're saying we essentially maintain our identity after physical death?" "Yes, but with an important distinction," Cayce responds, his fingers interlocking as he chooses his words carefully. "The soul retains its essential nature, but with an expanded awareness. Imagine how different your perspective would be if suddenly all the limitations of physical existence were removed. You'd still be you, but you'd perceive and understand things in ways that are impossible while bound to a material body. The readings describe this as a form of awakening, where the soul recognizes its true nature more fully." The interviewer makes a note, then asks, "In your readings, you've mentioned different realms or dimensions that souls travel through after death. Could you elaborate on what these realms are like?" Cayce's expression becomes more distant, as if he's accessing memories from his trance experiences. The afterlife isn't a single uniform state, but rather a series of realms or dimensions that correspond to different levels of spiritual development. Some souls may find themselves in what you might call thought-form environments that resemble physical life, created by collective expectations and beliefs. These are transitional stages that help the soul adjust. Others move quickly to more refined states of consciousness where physical analogies break down entirely. There are healing centers where souls who experience trauma or difficult deaths can recover. There are learning centers where souls review their earth lives and prepare for future experiences. The geography, if you will, of the afterlife is determined by consciousness itself. Like attracts like, and souls gravitate to realms that match their vibration or spiritual condition. That brings up an interesting question, the interviewer notes. Do your readings suggest anything like the traditional concepts of heaven and hell? Cayce shifts slightly in his chair, taking a moment before responding. The readings describe conditions that might be interpreted that way, but not in the sense of reward and punishment decreed by an external judge. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness that souls create through their own choices and development. A soul filled with hatred, selfishness, or fear creates its own suffering by the very nature of those energies. Conversely, a soul that has cultivated love, compassion, and harmony experiences a state that could be described as heavenly. But these are not permanent assignments, Cayce continues, his voice becoming more emphatic. No soul is condemned eternally. The readings emphasize that even in the darkest states, the opportunity for growth and transformation always exists. God's love and the universal laws are designed for the eventual restoration and development of every soul, no matter how far it may have strayed. The interviewer nods thoughtfully. Your readings also discuss reincarnation extensively. How does that fit into your understanding of life after death? A slight smile crosses Cayce's face. Yes, this was perhaps the most surprising element of the readings, especially given my Christian background. What became clear through thousands of readings is that physical rebirth is a central mechanism for soul growth. After death, and after a period in the non-physical realms I described, many souls choose to return to Earth for further experience and development. But reincarnation isn't endless or random, he explains, gesturing with his hands to emphasize the point. Each life has purpose, to learn specific lessons, to balance certain energies or actions from previous lives, to develop particular spiritual qualities, or to be of service in specific ways. The soul, together with spiritual guides, plans these incarnations carefully based on what it needs to learn and accomplish. The interviewer appears slightly troubled. If that's true, why don't we remember our past lives? Cayce pauses, his expression thoughtful. The veil of forgetting serves an important purpose. If we remembered everything, we might be overwhelmed or overly influenced by past patterns. By starting fresh, we can make choices more freely, based on who we are becoming rather than who we have been. However, the influence of past lives remains in our subconscious, affecting our talents, fears, attractions, and aversions. This is why certain souls seem inexplicably drawn to each other. There are connections that transcend the current lifetime. You've mentioned that the soul has a specific structure or anatomy in your readings, the interviewer says. Could you explain what you mean by the secret of the soul? At this, Cayce straightens slightly, his eyes opening briefly before closing again. The true secret of the soul lies in its divine origin and composition. My readings consistently describe the soul as a complex, multi-dimensional entity created in the image of God, not physical image, but spiritual essence. The soul contains within it all the attributes of divinity and microcosm, like a drop of water contains all the elements of the ocean. The soul has different bodies or vehicles of expression, he continues, his voice taking on a more instructional quality. The physical body we're all familiar with. But there's also what the readings call the etheric or astral body, which is the template for the physical and which separates at death. Beyond that is the mental body, which houses our thoughts, beliefs, and mental patterns. And at the deepest level is what some traditions call the causal body, where the record of all our experiences across incarnations is stored. These bodies interpenetrate one another during physical life. At death, they separate, with the soul consciousness withdrawing from the physical into the finer bodies. What makes this structure secret isn't that it's hidden intentionally, but that most people are simply unaware of their own multi-dimensional nature while focused on physical existence. The interviewer pauses, seeming to absorb this complex information. In your readings, you've discussed what you call life reviews. What happens during these experiences? Cayce's expression becomes more solemn. The life review is one of the most profound experiences awaiting us after death. The soul, freed from physical limitations, experiences a panoramic review of the life just lived, not just the events themselves, but their effects on others. Most significantly, we experience our actions from the perspective of those we affected. We feel the joy we brought to others as joy, and the pain we caused as pain. This isn't punishment, Cayce emphasizes, leaning forward slightly. It's a compassionate mechanism for soul growth and understanding. Many readings described souls being surprised, sometimes pleasantly, sometimes not, by seeing the true impact of actions they had considered insignificant. A small kindness might be revealed to have changed someone's life path. A casual cruelty might have created ripples of suffering beyond what was intended or imagined. That sounds potentially difficult to experience, the interviewer observes. It can be, Cayce acknowledges with a nod. But the readings describe it as being experienced within an atmosphere of profound love and understanding. There's no condemnation, only an opportunity for growth in awareness. The soul itself is its most accurate judge, seeing clearly where it succeeded in expressing its higher nature and where it fell short. The interviewer considers this for a moment. You've spoken about spiritual guides or helpers in the afterlife. Who are they, and what role do they play? Cayce's expression brightens. The readings consistently described a vast community of beings who assist souls both during physical life and after death. Some of these are what you might call evolved human souls, who have completed their cycle of Earth incarnations. Others are beings of different orders, who have never experienced physical incarnation as we know it. These guides serve as teachers, counselors, and protectors. After death, they help the soul adjust to non-physical existence and assist with the life review process. They provide perspective and guidance as the soul evaluates its experiences and plans its future growth. Many souls recognize these beings as having been with them during physical life as well, though their presence was mostly unrecognized. The interviewer makes another note. Mr. Cayce, your readings have mentioned something called the Akashic Records. Could you explain what these are and how they relate to the afterlife? Cayce nods, seeming pleased with the question. The Akashic Records represent what might be called the memory of God or the universe. They contain the complete history of every soul since its inception, including all thoughts, words, and deeds across all lifetimes. These records aren't physical books, of course, but exist in a non-physical dimension accessible to attuned consciousness. After death, souls have greater access to these records, particularly as they pertain to their own journey. During the life review, it's the Akashic Records that provide the complete and accurate account of one's life and its effects. The readings also indicated that the planning for future incarnations involves consultation of these records to understand what karmic patterns need resolution and what developmental opportunities would be most beneficial. The interviewer hesitates before asking her next question. In your readings, you've sometimes described encounters with Christ in the afterlife. Could you share more about that aspect of your visions? A look of deep reverence crosses Cayce's face. Yes, many readings described encounters with the Christ consciousness in the afterlife realms. This wasn't always experienced as the historical Jesus, though it could be for souls who expected that form. Rather, it was encountered as a profound, universal presence of perfect love and compassion that permeates the highest spiritual dimensions. For many souls, especially those from Western traditions, meeting this presence is described as the most transformative aspect of the afterlife experience. The readings portrayed Christ not as a judge, but as a perfect embodiment of divine love, a love so complete that it has the power to heal and transform even the most troubled soul. The interviewer takes a deep breath, clearly moved by Cayce's words. One final question, if I may. Based on everything you've seen in your readings, what would you say is the ultimate purpose of this cycle of life, death, and rebirth? Cayce is silent for a long moment, his expression profoundly peaceful. When he speaks, his voice carries a quiet certainty. The purpose is the complete realization of our oneness with God. Each soul is on a journey to fully express its divine nature, to manifest love, wisdom, and creative power as God does, but through the unique perspective of an individual consciousness. Earth lives provide opportunities to develop these qualities through the challenges and limitations of physical existence. Death, far from being an end, is a periodic return to a more expanded state where we can integrate what we've learned. The afterlife realms provide healing, learning, and preparation for the next phase of experience. And reincarnation offers fresh opportunities to develop aspects of our nature that remain incomplete. The readings describe this as a grand cycle that eventually leads to what some traditions call enlightenment or cosmic consciousness, a state where the soul fully realizes its divine nature while maintaining its individuality. At that point, the cycle of Earth incarnations is complete, though service and growth continue in other dimensions and forms. The interviewer sits in silence for a moment, absorbing the profound implications of Cayce's words. Thank you, Mr. Cayce. Your insights offer both comfort and challenge. Comfort in knowing that death is not the end, and challenge in recognizing our responsibility for spiritual growth. Cayce smiles gently. That's well said. The greatest comfort comes not from escaping responsibility, but from understanding that the universe is ultimately just, loving, and purposeful. Every soul has endless opportunities to learn, grow, and fulfill its divine potential. Death is not to be feared, but understood as a transition to another phase of our eternal journey. As our interview with Edgar Cayce draws to a close, we're left with a profound vision of what awaits us beyond this physical existence. His reading suggests that death is not an ending but a homecoming, a return to a fuller awareness of who we truly are. The soul, far from being lost or extinguished, continues its journey with purpose and divine guidance. What if the greatest secret about death is that it reveals the illusion of separation? What if, as Cayce suggested, we discover that we were never truly separated from our loved ones, from our spiritual companions, or from the divine source of all life? Perhaps this understanding can transform how we live our lives today, knowing that every thought, word, and action contributes to our eternal unfoldment. Thank you for joining us for this extraordinary glimpse into the mysteries of the soul. If these ideas resonate with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. We read everyone. Your engagement helps us share these profound spiritual insights with more seekers around the world. Subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the depths of consciousness and spiritual wisdom with us. Remember, as Edgar Cayce himself might say, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience.